Shalom, all praise to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, double honor to the apostles of GMS. This is Amna Allah coming at you another video. In this video, I want to title this show, The Hasmonean Dynasty, Herod the Great, and the Flight into Egypt, or something along those lines. So basically, I'm going to give a historical context to what eventually led to Yahushua having to flee into Egypt. Okay? So let's get started. I want to start with the Hasmonean dynasty. First, I was going to just straight up go into the Lord fleeing into Egypt. But then when I started to study that and I started going to Herod and I started to go into the Hasmonean dynasty, I was like, you know what? This was to be like a series, starting with this. So let's just get to it. This is tabletmag.com. So I just decided to start with this. History. Who are the Hasmoneans? A Jewish populist movement that rejected Greece in favor of Iran, only to be conquered by Rome. Iran, in other words, the Persians. Now it said a Jewish populist movement. Populist, it deals with the people. Real quick. Populist. From Google. It says populist. A person, especially a politician, who strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are being disregarded by the established elite groups. So that's what a populist is. Let's go back. Okay, so let's right here show you some arrowheads dating from the Hasmonean revolts found in the citadel of Jerusalem. Now here's the beginning of the article. It says, the Hasmonean Jewish kingdom came to an end in 63 BCE, which means before Common Era, because of a rivalry between the brothers Aristobulus II and Hyrcanus II, and we're going to go into that later on in this series. Both of whom appealed to the Roman Republic to intervene and settle the power struggle in their favor. So you had Aristobulus II and Hyrcanus II, who were Israelites, a part of the Hasmonean dynasty, and they had a rivalry. Okay? They had conflict. And they both appealed to the Roman Republic to intervene and to settle the power struggle in their favor. Aristobulus II wanted the power struggle to be wanted the Roman Republic to intervene in his favor. Hyrcanus II wanted the Roman Republic to intervene in his favor. So first, let's get into Roman Republic. What is the Roman Republic? Here is a website called differencebetween.net. It says differencebetween.net. This is from April 10th, 2020. It says difference between the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. Because some may see Roman Republic and Roman Empire and may think that it's interchangeable when it's not necessarily so. It says the history of Rome is extensive and at the same time thrilling. With an ancient population of Sabines, Latins, and Etruscans, the city was the capital of the Roman Empire, the Roman Kingdom, and the Roman Republic. It has since received the ovation of an alpha city worldwide. Despite sharing the capital city, the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire differed in various ways. What is the Roman Republic? Dating from 509 BC to 27 BC, this was the era that began with the overthrow of the Roman kingdom and ended with the establishment of the Roman Empire. At this period, the Roman society was a cultural mix of Greek, Latin, and Etruscan elements. Rome's control barriers also expanded to hegemony, 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 basically like leadership or dominance. Rome's control barriers also expanded to hegemony in the entire Mediterranean region. Its political system was an oligarchy, like when you have a powerful family, families that are in control, like the Rothschilds, Rockefellers. Those are like oligarchs or oligarchies. Its political system was an oligarchy with a few powerful families. Controlled the main magistracies, who had legislative, military, judiciary, religious, and executive powers. Despite the common political and social crisis the Republic underwent, it was resilient and always overcame the obstacles. The final blow, however, occurred after the defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, which saw the Senate grant Octavian extraordinary powers, hence ending the Republic. Now it said the final blow, however, occurred after the defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Now what is that talking about? The defeat of Mark Antony, and Cleopatra. First and foremost, let's talk about Cleopatra the seventh Philippa, who was not a black woman. That was a line of Edomites. Okay? Greeks. The final blow ever occurred after the defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, which saw the Senate grant Octavian extraordinary powers, hence ending the Republic. Now, what the defeat of what? What war? What battle? Right here we have the Battle of Actium. The Battle of Actium was a naval battle fought between the maritime fleet by Octavian and the combined fleets of Mark Antony and Cleopatra the seventh Philippa, which she was a descendant of Ptolemy the first Sada. Ptolemy Sada the first. See, Ptolemy the first Sada, right there. Let's go back. The battle took place on September 2nd, 31 BC, in the Ionian Sea near the Roman colony of Actium, Greece, and was the climax of over a decade of rivalry between Octavian and Antony. To give you a little background, it just says, I'm just going to read about one paragraph, and that's going to be about it. Background. The alliance among Octavian, you see this picture here supposed to be Mark Antony, and there's a younger Octavian. It says, the alliance among Octavian, Mark Antony, and Marcus Lepidus, commonly known as the Second Triumvirate, was renewed for a 5-year term at Tarentum in 37 BC. But the triumvirate broke down when Octavian saw Caesarion, the professed son of Julius Caesar, and Queen Cleopatra VII of Egypt as a major threat to his power. This occurred when Mark Antony, the other most influential member of the triumvirate, abandoned his wife, Octavian's sister, Octavia Minor. Afterward, he moved to Egypt to start a long-term romance with Cleopatra, the one he was allied with, becoming Caesarion's de facto stepfather. So Caesarion, who was the professed son of Julius Caesar, who was before Octavian, who was the professed son of Julius Caesar, Mark Antony went and had a romance with Cleopatra, which would then make him Caesarion's stepfather. Octavian and the majority of the Roman Senate saw Antony as leading a separatist movement that threatened to break the Roman Republic's unity, and that's what started the war. Because if you know anything about the ancient world, people got married for power, for political reasons. So they saw that as a threat to the Roman Republic unity. Okay? It's a little bit more I could read on that, but I don't want to read too much. Okay? So let's go back. This is War of Actium on Wikipedia. With the War of Actium 32 to 30 BC was the last civil war of the Roman Republic, fought between Mark Antony, assisted by Cleopatra, and Octavian. So between Mark Antony and Octavian, he was assisted by Cleopatra VII. So he married her, and basically they felt that it was a whole big, it was going to break up the unity of the Roman Republic. So Mark Antony marrying, or not necessarily marrying, but you could call it marrying, having a romance with Cleopatra VII. They looked at it as that was going to be a threat to the Roman Republic. In 32 BC, Octavian convinced the Roman Senate to declare war on the Egyptian queen Cleopatra. Her lover and ally Mark Antony, who was Octavian's rival, gave his support for her cause. 40% of the Roman Senate, together with both consuls, left Rome to join the war with Antony's side. After decisive victory for Octavian at the Battle of Actium, Cleopatra and Antony withdrew to Alexandria, where Octavian besieged the city until both Antony and Cleopatra were forced to commit suicide. And this is basically the results of the battle. It says, result, victory for Octavian. Rome is united under Octavian's rule. Roman Senate bestows titles Augustus and Princeps Senatus upon Octavian. So Octavian was called Augustus, or like Augustus Caesar, which Augustus right here means majestic, great, or venerable. This is from Wikipedia. Was an ancient Roman title given as both name and title to Gaius Julius Caesar Octavius, often referred to simply as Augustus, Rome's first emperor. So he became Rome's first emperor. Okay? He became Rome's first emperor, and Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus became simply known as Augustus Caesar. Augustus meaning the great, majestic, or venerable. And he was also given the title of Princeps Senatus. from Wikipedia says the Princeps Senatus was the first member by presidents of the Roman Senate. Okay. I could read a little bit more. That's basically it. I'll read a little bit into it. It says, the Princeps Senatus was not a lifetime appointment. He was chosen by every new pair of censors, that is, every 5 years. Censors would, however, confirm a Princeps Senatus for a period of another 5 years. He was selected from patrician senators with consular rank, usually former censors. The successful candidate had to be a patrician with an impeccable political record, respected by his fellow senators. The office was established around the year 275 BC. Originally, the position of princeps was one of honor. He had the privilege of speaking first on the topic presented by the presiding magistrate. This gave the position great dignitas, as it allowed the princeps to set the tone of the debate in the Senate. Across the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, the office gained the prerogatives of the presiding magistrates and additional privileges, namely summoning and adjourning the Senate, deciding the agenda, deciding where the session would take place, imposing order and other rules of the session, meeting in the name of the Senate, the embassies of foreign countries, and writing in the name of the Senate letters and dispatches. So basically, these were the privileges that Octavian was granted after defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra, the 7th Cleopatra, in the battle of Actium. And then right here it says what? Roman Republic transforms into the Roman Empire. So that was it. Boom. So now we have the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire has now come into existence. Okay? The Roman Empire has now come into existence. It has now begun to exist. Alright? And when you read a little down, it says the war involved some of the largest Roman armies ever seen. Both Antony and Octavian's legions were experienced veterans of previous civil wars who have fought together, many also having once served under Caesar, Julius Caesar, who was before Augustus Caesar. The two did, however, raise their own legions separately. Following the end of the war, Octavian brought peace to the Roman Senate that had been plagued by a century of civil wars. Octavian became the most powerful man in the Roman world, and the Senate bestowed upon them the honorific of Augustus in 27 BC. Octavian, now Augustus, would be the first Roman emperor and would transform the Republic into the Roman Empire. So now we have the beginning of the Roman Empire. That's how the Roman Empire started. Before it was the Roman Republic, now you got the Roman Empire. We got that now. Okay, so we understand they had a battle. Mark Antony had a romance with Cleopatra, the 7th Cleopatra, who was descended from the Ptolemaic Empire, who reigned in Egypt. Octavius thought that would be a threat to the Roman Republic, because you're allying with these other kingdoms. So they felt that would be a threat. And, people had romance or they married for political reasons, so they thought that they together would be a threat against the Roman Republic. He thought it would be a threat to the unity of that triumvirate, the unity of the Roman Republic, and that caused a war, the Battle of Actium. What is the Roman Empire? Ruled by emperors, this was the post-Republican period of ancient Rome from 27 BC to 76 AD around North America, Europe, and West Asia. During this period, Rome saw a period of stability for the first 2 centuries and reached its greatest territorial expanse. The absolute monarchy governance was used during this period. Despite this, the empire's existence was threatened after the Pomeranian Empire and the Gallic Empire broke away from the Roman Senate, and small empires led the empire. Okay, the empire was, however, united under Aurelian, whereby 2 imperial courts were set up. The Western Roman Empire would finally collapse, while the Eastern Roman Empire survived. So, some similarities between the Roman Republic and Roman Empire. Both had Rome as a capital. Differences between the Roman Empire and the Roman Republic and Roman Empire. While the Roman Republic ruled from 509 BC to 27 BC, the Roman Empire ruled from 27 BC to 476 AD. Official languages. These are just some differences. Roman Republic, Latin was the official languages. Roman Empire had Latin and Greek as official languages. The Roman Republic practiced polytheism, polytheistic religion. Roman Empire practiced imperial cult-driven polytheism. Governance type. The Roman Republic was constitutional. Republic governance was used. It was like a democracy, more egalitarian. People had equal rights. They believed people had equal rights. People were equal. You voted for particular people in power. On the other hand, absolute monarchy governance was used in the Roman Empire. So these are some examples. It tells you who it was preceded by. The Roman Republic was preceded by the Roman Kingdom. The Roman Empire was preceded by the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic was succeeded by the Roman Empire, while the Roman Empire was succeeded by the Western and Eastern Roman Empire. And here's a little picture right here that gives you another example. So that's it. So let's go back. So we're back here. It says, so now we know what that is. Let's go continue on. It says, in response to their call, the Roman general Gaius Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great, was dispatched to the area. 12,000 Jews were massacred in the Roman siege of Jerusalem, and the priests of the temple were struck down at the altar. Rome annexed Judea. Let's go to what does it mean, annex Judea? This is annex from dictionary.com, to attach, append, or add, especially to something larger or more important, to incorporate territory into the domain of a city, country, or state. So that's what it means, annex. To incorporate territory into the domain of a city. So basically, Judea became a part of Roman territory. And this is during the Roman Republic, because you know the Roman Republic, the Roman Empire came into existence in 27 BC. This is talking about 63 BCE, before Common Era. Rome annexed Judea, moved that over the next century or so, would transform an out-of-the-way province into Roman Algeria or Vietnam. I guess they're comparing it to Algeria, comparing it to Vietnam, and helped give rise to both Christianity and Rabbinic Judaism. The Hasmoneans were a rural priestly family, which the Hasmonean Dynasty is talking about the Maccabees. The Hasmoneans were a rural priestly family whose members, it was said that in Josephus' Antiquities of the Jews, that they were called Hasmoneans. The Hasmoneans were a rural priestly family whose members later rose to occupy the office of the high priest and later styled themselves as kings. In both cases, they acted as usurpers, prompting unwittingly aversion from the temple worship and longing for a king of the dynasty of the house of David. After the death of Alexander the Great, who had conquered the Persian Achaemenid Empire, thus establishing the Second Global Empire, his Macedonian generals divided his territories and began fighting each other. So it says his Macedonian generals divided his territories and began fighting each other. Let's go into that a little bit. Now this is from worldhistory.org. So when it says they started fighting each other, that's called the Wars of the Diadochi, which Diadochi means successors. See? Here's a map of where they all reigned. The Seleucid Empire, alright, Salakia. On June 10th, 323 BCE, Alexander the Great died in Babylon. Historians have debated the exact cause. Most agree that the empire he built was left without adequate leadership, for there was no clear successor or heir. The military commanders who had followed the king for over a decade across the sands of Asia were left to fight each other over their small piece of the territorial pie. These were the Wars of the Succession, or Wars of the Diadochi. What followed were over 3 decades of intense rivalry. In the end, 3 dynasties would emerge, remaining in power until the time of the Romans. Now, can we find any scriptural proof of this? Yes, we can. This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and died. He really reigned 12 years and 8 months, because he took the throne when his father Philip II of Macedon was slain October 336 BC, and Alexander died June 332 BC. So he reigned for 12 years, 8 months. Because from June 332, October 336 BC to June 332 BC. Okay? So that's a total of 12 years. And June 323 BC. Excuse me. So that's a total of 12 years and 8 months. Okay? So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. That is talking about the wars of the Diadochi. That's when evils were multiplied on the earth, because they were warring with each other for about 40 years. And it goes on to Antiochus Epiphanes. Isaac became a wicked root because he came out of that Seleucid line. Okay, so let's go back. Alright, so we're back. It says, after the death of Alexander the Great, who had conquered the Persian Achaemenid Empire, thus establishing the Second Global Empire, his Macedonian generals divided his territories and began fighting each other. It's talking about the Wars of the Succession, or Wars of the Successors, or the Wars of the Diadochi, which Diadochi means successors. And it was said to have occurred from about 322 BC to 381 BC, so about a period of 40 years. Okay? Judah fell to Ptolemy I, who ruled Egypt since 305 BCE, before Common Era, and had the Alexandrian Ptolemy I, or his son Ptolemy II the Great, that the Pentateuch, penta meaning five, like pentagon, it has five sides, the shape that has five sides. Tuk or tukos means scrolls. So Pentateuch means five scrolls or five books. In other words, the Torah, the first five books of Moses, the first five books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That the Pentateuch was translated into Greek. Ruling as Egypt's pharaohs, the Ptolemean dynasty tended to be tolerant. Tolerant of, the Jews, the Israelites. Because they had the first five books written in Greek. So they appeared to be tolerant of, they're implying that they were tolerant of the beliefs of the Israelites. In 312 BCE, before Common Era, Seleucus the Macedonian, cavalry general of Alexander the Great, was made king at Babylon. Appian wrote that Seleucus ruled over Mesopotamia, Armenia, Seleucid Cappadocia, Persis, Parthia, Bactria, Arabia, Tapuria, Sogdia, Arachosia, Hyrcania, as far as the river Indus. The whole region from Phrygia to the Indus was subject to Seleucus. So this is the area that Seleucus had reigned. Okay? Now we know that Seleucus is one of Alexander's generals, real quick. This is the book of Daniel chapter 7 verse 6, because remember I mentioned the regions that Seleucus had reigned, the Seleucid Empire was. It says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl, which Alexander was known to have wore leopard skin. Okay? He was known to have worn leopard skin. Even that, I believe there's even coins with Alexander's image wearing a leopard skin on his head. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So it's a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. And you see an image of that right here. 4 generals of Alexander's army: Cassandra, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, Seleucus. And there was even the 5th one known as Antigonus, but he wasn't as major as these 4. Which Alexander had many other generals as well, but these are like the primary 4: Cassandra, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, Seleucus. And you see even this picture here, it has a leopard, has a beast, a leopard, a 4-headed leopard with 4 wings. So we know the leopard represents the Greek Empire, because Alexander, who was the king of the Greeks, was known to have one leopard skin. And the 4 wings represent the vastness of the empire. So the leopard represents the Greeks, because Alexander was known to have wore a leopard skin. The 4 heads represent 4 heads or 4 rulers. The 4 generals, Cassandra, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, Seleucus. And the 4 wings represents the vastness of the empire. For example, why do they have a term called bird's eye view? Because a bird flies high in the sky, and a bird can see a vast area. A bird can see over a vast distance. So it represents the vastness of the empire. If you look at this image here, it shows you right here. It says the yellow represents the reign of the Seleucid Empire. See right here? The yellow represents Seleucus. And then the blue right here, this area right here, and even has some blue here. Aegyptus, Aegyptus, that's Aegyptus, that's Egypt. That's why you had the king of the north and the king of the south. The king of the north, Israel is in this region here. But it says that the king of the north in Daniel 11 represents the Syrian Empire, or because represents the Seleucid Empire, excuse me. The king of the north represents the Seleucid Empire, because the Seleucid Empire had reigned in Syria, which is north of Israel. and the king of the south represents the Ptolemaic Empire because the Ptolemaic Empire reigned in Egypt, which is south of Israel. And here you see the reign of Cassandra. See, it says Macedonia, Gracia, and it says reign of Lacemecae or Lacemeicus. It gives you the region here, Thracia. And even if you go into Antigonus, it shows you Antigonus somewhere in this region of like Ephesus, Asia Minor type region. But these were the four main generals, and they fought one another and took over one another's territories. So this represents the vastness of that empire. Just to go into the vastness of where Seleucid had reigned. So let's go back. Continuing on, it says, he founded two new capitals at Antioch on the Orontes, Antiochia now in Turkey, and Seleucia on the Tigris, north of Babylon, ruling such vast territories. The Seleucids opted for Unitarism, and as a result, Hellenization. But such a huge state began to disintegrate quickly. So it says, Unitarism. What is Unitarism? Here is Unitarism from OxfordReference.com. Is a perspective on employment that emphasizes the shared interests of all members of an organization. It assumes there are compatible goals, a common purpose, and a single unitary interest, which means that if managed effectively, the organization will function harmoniously. So, the Seleucids, they favor unitarism, everything operating harmoniously, everything having a common purpose, a single interest. In other words, they wanted everybody to be one. They were secularizing or making their empire one. That's what they believe. Okay, I'll just scrolling right there to see what it was. Okay. Now remember, I used the word secularizing. Look at the term secular state. It says secular state is an idea pertaining to secularity, whereby a state is or purports to be officially neutral in matters of religion, supporting neither religion or irreligion. A secular state claims to treat all its citizens equally regardless of religion and claims to avoid preferential treatment for a citizen based on their religious beliefs, affiliation, or lack of either over those with other profiles. All right. So this is basically an idea of it. So they basically wanted everything to be one. That's basically what it was. They wanted everything to be one. Let's go to the Maccabees. First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 41. It says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. So they all became one. Unitarism. A secular state. No preferential treatment. Everybody's going to be one. Everything's going to be harmonious. We all going to be alike. That's how when we go back here, we looked up Unitarism, like unite means uni meaning one. Unitarian, AN means pertaining to. Roman pertaining to Rome. Grecian pertaining to Greece. Okay? Unitarism or Unitarian pertaining to being one. As a result, it says, ruling such vast territories, the Seleucids opted for Unitarism. Because they're ruling such vast territories, so listen, man, we just gonna make everybody be what we want them to be. Everybody's gonna be one. You're not gonna be keeping this religion over here or that religion over there. Everybody's gonna be one. Because they're ruling such vast territories. So just make everybody the same. And as a result, Hellenization. But such a huge state began to disintegrate quickly. Okay? It says, in the long series of Syrian wars, 273 to 168 BCE, that followed Judea, and I was reading secular state from Wikipedia, if I didn't mention that followed Judea and Samaria were brought under the Seleucid sway around 200 BCE when King Antiochus III the Great defeated the armies of Ptolemy V Epiphanes of Egypt at the Battle of Banias in Israel, during the Fifth Syrian War. The elites of Judea prompted extremist degrees of Hellenization and tried to drag the Seleucid government to support such efforts. A tradition was thus fixed in Jewish history, which gave birth in turn to the Soviet Yevsektia. Okay? Yevsektia. See, even to mention here, the elites of Judea. See that right there? It said the elites of Judea um um promote extremist degrees of Hellenization. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay. All right. Let me scroll down real quick. Okay. What was it? Okay, here we go. It says, under Antiochus IV Epiphanes, circa 215 to 164 BC, the Seleucid government joined the ongoing civil war in Judea between the rural traditionists and the Hellenizing urban elites. So they had rural traditionists and traditionalists, meaning people who wanted to keep the traditions of their fathers, the Israelites that wanted to keep the traditions of their fathers. But then you had the Hellenizing urban elites, meaning you had Israelites that wanted to that were Hellenized and wanted to Hellenize their people. Let's get scripture on that. This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11. It says, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, wicked Israelites, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward therein, that when they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. See that? They were sold to do mischief. They were doing mischief. So guess what they was doing? They were urban Hellenizers. They were Hellenizing other Israelites. Now remember, it said that they were made themselves uncircumcised, right? You actually had a practice called Epispasm. Epispasm. Epispasm is a surgical procedure at the base of the penis to lengthen shaft skin in the hopes of allowing a short foreskin to cover the exposed glands more fully. The incision area is bandaged so new skin will grow and connect the edges, lengthening the penis's skin. Epispasm was performed on Greek and Roman men in ancient times and was described in detail by Aulus Cornelius Celsus in De Messina. I guess that was a book, De Messina, circa 47 CE. Jewish men in the Hellenistic era also underwent epispasm to appear more like the Greeks and Romans to avoid social ostracism, being ostracized, being, an outcast. The procedure is still done to provide foreskin coverage in intact men and as a means of foreskin restoration in circumcised men. You got some chick named Trish Kelsey. She even got a book called Intact Men as They Were Born to Be. This is ridiculous. And you know what she's promoting? Uncircumcision. It's ridiculous. But this is what our ancestors was doing. Let's go back. It says in 167 BCE on Kislev 25. Kislev is a Jewish month, which, let me see if I can find that real quick. Kislev is a Jewish month. Okay. The 9th month on the Jewish calendar, counting from the month of Nisan. Say that that's the where Hanukkah is, Kislev 25. But anyway, in 167 BCE on Kislev 25, an altar to Zeus with swine sacrifices was erected in the temple. That's about the abomination that maketh desolate in the book of Daniel, the 11th chapter, in the 31st verse. Let's get that real quick. This is Daniel 11:31. And arms shall be on his part, arms representing power, strength, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. There you go, the abomination of desolation, and that's what Antiochus Epiphanes did when he came into Israel, when he came into Jerusalem, and this is 167 BC, the abomination of desolation. Okay, get another scripture on that. Let's go back to 1 Maccabees 141. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, so all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificing to idols and profaned the Sabbath. So they worshiping other gods, they wasn't keeping the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land. See that? And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars, groves, and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised. So if you had a newborn baby, they wasn't circumcising their babies. And you had adult men out there that was actually practicing epispasm. It's ridiculous. And make their souls abominable with all men of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. Okay? In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanded the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. So we have an example. So we go into the scriptures to line up with the history. So it says in 167 BC, back on who are the Hasmoneans. In 167 BC, on Kislev 25, an altar to Zeus was swan. Because remember, it said temples of idols. So Zeus is an idol, false god, right? So that was built too. It didn't say the word Zeus, but we know it mentioned temples of idols. They worship idols, and Zeus was an idol. Zeus was a god of the ancient Greeks, and Zeus was called. The Greeks called that so-called god Zeus. The Romans called that so-called god Jupiter. All right, in 167 BC, on Kislev 25, an altar to Zeus with swine sacrifices was erected in the temple. Jewish practices like circumcision, or Israelite practices, I should say, like circumcision were banned. We just read that. An act of totalitarian interference unheard of in the ancient world. So that's totalitarianism right there. And what's totalitarianism? Real brief. Totalitarian. On Google it says, relating to a system of government that is centralized and dictatorial and requires complete subservience to the state. There you go. Totalitarianism is when you have to have complete subservience to the state, and it is dictatorial. It's a dictatorship. That's basically what it is. Oh, I think I just saw something interesting real quick. Let me go back. Okay, I was looking at it, said the 7 traits of totalitarianism. Okay, so we can go back. It says the Seleucid government had no choice but to act together with Jerusalem's Hellenizers. They acted together with those Hellenized Jews against their rural opponents. And who were their rural opponents? Their rural opponents were the Maccabees, which is known as the Hasmonean Dynasty. Okay, that was their rural opponents. So he said that they acted together with them. So what did that mean? You had to have had Israelites out there that were allied with the Seleucids. After all, it was stated let them make a covenant with the heathen, right? So they were allied with them against their own people. So those were the Hellenizers that it was speaking of. Alright?